G'day guys, Kempy here. Latest edition of Solar Outsiders podcast. Haven't done one of these for 6 months, but we've scrounged around the internet and found Joe Ordia of Carolina, South Carolina, Gator territory, and he's going to talk to us about what's going on in America and what with batteries, especially because of Australia now. We have a big battery boom. A lot of people searching for batteries at the moment because of the new cheaper home battery program, Albanese rebate. So I thought, this guy online, Solar Surge, Joe, he's been posting battery stuff like crazy. He must test all these He's in like 10 different battery companies' pockets or something. Like they're just sending him batteries. He's testing them. I don't know what's going on. I've only briefly spoken to him, but he's going to fill us all in. And we just want to get his opinion for Australia buyers and especially my buyers, Queensland buyers, Brisbane buyers, anyone in Australia. They would have definitely come across his videos and they would be thinking, how does this relate to Australia, this information? Well, Joe's about to tell you. So, Joe, who are you? You said you're an electrician, and you started as an installer back a long time ago, since day zero. Which what year was that? 2010 ish, earlier.
Yeah, Daniel. So I first got started in solar back in 2012, and as we were saying just a little bit before the interview, I started off as an off-grid installer, where we were doing purely off-grid battery-based solar systems for places that either didn't have any access to utility power, or a lot of the projects we were doing was people that wanted like survival properties, survival bunkers, and they wanted
The
those
doomsday
properties to be
preppers.
powered.
That's
Exactly,
where they're
doomsday
from,
preppers.
man. Florida and all
Yeah.
that. That's the home of them. Yeah.
So that's kind of where things started in solar for me was in being part of the emergency preparedness community or interest group. Started doing these off-grid power systems for people that wanted to have a more resilient power supply. But over the years and as grid connected solar got more popular here in the States, we started doing more fully permitted, inspected grid tie systems, where you can trade energy back and forth with the power company.
Yeah.
So became a fully licensed contractor back in 2016, licensed electrician as well, and ran a solar installation company for several years. Then restructured around 2020 and basically relaunched myself as a sales and marketing company where we would basically sell projects on behalf of larger construction contractors that would then come behind and fulfill the installations. But now, to kind of wrap it up full circle, now what we do primarily, Daniel, though, is video production. And so we started back in 2020, and this was during the period where we had COVID lockdowns in the States. So we couldn't really go
Oh,
and meet with customers in a face-to-face basis.
yeah.
So around that time, we just started making YouTube videos about all the products that we had been installing the years before, different batteries, different inverters, solar panels. And the approach was let's just put information out there based on my experience and our company's experience installing all these different products, and then just see if people would be interested in watching the content. And we figured that, it would be a way that we could generate leads, into our business, because if people were researching these products, chances are some of those people were shopping for those products and maybe looking for someone to have it installed. And that's how our content operation, our media operation got started, was just taking our experience from a decade plus of solar installation and then just putting that out there as video content in the form of product reviews and short little educational pieces.
Right. So how do you guys make money? Like, just if you just do videos, you're not doing lead generation or what?
So we do lead generation. That's one component of it.
Right.
Another component is YouTube AdSense. So other companies
Uh,
will pay to run their ads on our YouTube channel, and YouTube shares a portion of that revenue with us. But our main revenue driver is as a sponsored content creator. So we work with some of the largest brands that want to sell their product into our space. If you're talking
oh yeah.
about residential solar and battery storage, you're talking about some of the larger names in terms of inverter and battery manufacturers,
So they do send you
including
one,
one.
and then you talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they'll send us a sample, but
Yeah.
more oftentimes we're doing a structured video campaign. So a company might come up and let's say Sigenergy, for example. I know we mentioned them earlier off screen. Sigenergy, I believe, has #1 market share now in Australia for solar and storage systems, all-in-one systems.
They definitely
So
do. Yeah.
we'll work with a company like Sigenergy, and we may put together a plan for the entire year. We may say, okay, we're gonna publish 12 videos, one video per month for the entire year, and we'll cut those into shorts and put them on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. And we'll do that for a price, right? We'll come up with a service fee for that engagement, and then we'll shoot the content, we'll produce the content, and then we'll release it out over the course of the year. So
So, if,
yes, we do work with companies,
yeah.
manufacturers, but
But
we
if you've
also
got
do
like
a
20
good
of
amount
them
of
doing
organic.
that, then you become really an expert on all 20 of them.
Pretty much, we get, I think, unique behind the scenes access. Like we get to tour the factories and the production facilities and see how these products are put together, and meet a lot of the management teams and executives behind the brands. So, yeah, it's a unique thing. I didn't expect to be in this position when I started in solar. Again, I was doing off-grid installations, and it just so happens that now I've sort of become this YouTube internet battery guy, because of just how much time I've spent in the space and how many of these different products I've had a chance to work with.
Yeah, cool. So, have you heard of the new Australian solar rebate for 2025?
So I know there's a rebate, and I understand the government is covering a portion of the cost, but maybe if you wouldn't mind explaining for me a little bit, why are batteries so popular in Australia now, and why is the government giving people money to install these?
So they started to become organically popular to the fact, that you 20 25% between 10 to 25% of a lot of companies, solar retail companies, customers were getting a battery, so nearly a quarter were, and probably even a little bit around that figure were starting to wanting batteries. So it still wasn't the majority yet, but it was definitely coming. And especially we've had big blackouts for like a week or two here from a cyclone that we've just had. Just like your area is a big cyclone prone, I believe. Uh, yeah,
Yep.
that was all starting to happen, and then they just announced at the very end of the election campaign, oh yeah, we're going to give $2.3 billion uh, towards home batteries. And we all just went, whoa, this is going to throw. And this has all just happened only like 2 months ago. And they just announced that they're going to start paying everyone $370 per kilowatt of battery storage, um, yeah, as a rebate. So if you've got a real
Wow.
cheap battery, that near enough is like not much. If 370 a
Oh
kilowatt,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then if you got like the more expensive thing, Powerwall, it chips only a little bit off the price, but still a lot. But yeah, so the difference, so with this kind of rebate, how it's tiered, a lot of people like just flood for the cheapest quote. And then there's been other rebates, I believe, in different states. I'm not sure because all this came out was so wishy-washy. Like we didn't know. Sometimes our customers would know before us. Oh yeah, they just announced it, and things like you can stack that rebate on top of on top. That's a federal rebate on top of state rebates. So then you near enough get a battery handed to you for free plus a $500 holiday voucher. Like me, just
Yeah.
crazy stuff. But yeah, so we've got a big Sigenergy shortage at the moment, especially the 10 kilowatt batteries that everyone wants. I know I've got a customer there that we've got that issue at the moment. But yeah, that's what's going on. So you probably never heard of anything like that. But as I said, there's people selling for 3,000 US a 13 kilowatt system, fully installed here in Australia. Like that's just unheard of over your side. But yeah, that's what's going on. So
Yeah.
there's a big rush at the moment for people to try to get in to be, included in that $2.3 billion. And it's up to a massive 50 kilowatt hours of storage as well. So businesses are putting it on. As you know, all the Sigenergy batteries, everything, it's all pretty good for battery backup now. They've just had the cyclone, things like that. So it's a perfect storm of just demand. I'm sure you would have seen your stats if you look at your analytics that would have spiked from Australian visitors having a look, checking out your stuff because that's how I come across you. Because so suddenly we're now so doing from 25% batteries to now 90% batteries. It's just flipped, and all of a sudden we've got to do research on every single little battery out there, you know, and because we just need to be able to speak the lingo. And yeah, I was always hesitant at batteries because I was a bit, as you know, the early ones. I don't know if you got LG Chems recalled over
Oh yeah.
there. Yeah, we got them
Yeah.
recalled massively. The Solax ones, which I think might have been them identical. The early GCL batteries, I think, had some like just they were never good until kind of now, and that's what I've kind of gathered. And let's hope they're good now, I guess. Yeah, but so what can you tell me about what I've just rambled on about there?
Well, you touched on a lot of the interesting points there, Daniel, but I will tell you, you mentioned that those LG Chem batteries. So that was the first lithium-based home battery that we ever offered here in the States. When I was a contractor, this was back in 2017, we started selling those LG Chem batteries paired with the Solar Edge storage inverter. And it was a complete disaster. It was a complete disaster. I think nearly half of the systems we installed had to be serviced within the first 6 months. And it was one of these things. A lot of the issues were just technical communications incompatibilities between the inverter, which came at the time inverter from Solar Edge, and the battery from LG Chem. And every time one of them would update the firmware, the connection would break down, and we just could never seem to get it right. So that first generation of LG Chem was ultimately recalled in the United States as well, and then their second generation Resu battery also got recalled. So it has been a bumpy road, I think, to getting started with these more intelligent home batteries in the U.S. I'm curious though. So it sounds like up until just recently, though, most of the solar that you've been installing was grid connected only. Is that correct? No
Yes,
battery backup.
yeah, that's correct. No battery backup. I left all that to the battery guys that, and my installer that we use, he was doing work for other guys that were keen to take on this, uncharted waters. So he'd been learning for years in the background, but I'd never put any of my customers through it. So he was always getting his experience and everything with doing them. But as a retailer, he would do them for other retailers because we use subcontractors and we just don't use any subcontractors. We use like there's a whole thing about don't use subcontractors. Man, subcontractors are the best because when they're an employee and you find out that they're just going around fixing all the new guys' stuff, they then say, "Stuff this, I'm gonna bill you for this. This is what I'm worth because a real good subcontractor's worth it." So they're the ones that we use. But what I'm saying is he was going around doing this for all the other some other battery favored retailers, seeing all the problems, and I was just like, for years, I was just like, man, I'm glad I didn't sell it. As you know, the LG thing, slow to payment, all the customers going
Yeah.
crazy, fires, houses having to be rebuilt again because toxic fumes getting
Yeah.
in them and stuff. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's been good that I've managed to sit that one out so far, and I've come in at the right time, and with experienced installers underneath me. Yeah, but I've just got to learn all the lingo, but so does everyone else. Even the battery guy that was pushing one or two products for 5 years, he's now got to get equipped with because there must be like 20 plus big battery names now on the market. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it is crazy, and I think in the States we're also seeing a lot of these companies for the first time.
Just pop
I
up,
know
eh?
Sing
It's
What's
like the
that?
Chinese EVs, man. They just pop up
Yeah,
new
yeah, they
names
just
you
keep
never heard.
all these new brands they keep popping up. And that's actually part of what I view my role as, for the industry here is helping to cut through a lot of that noise and focus on what are the small handful of brands that you can really take seriously. Because, I think a lot of these Chinese companies that do not yet have established brands or established customer support in the local market, I don't know that you can really risk your business partnering with a company like that.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
as a contractor, right. You need to have after install support. It's not just about getting the cheapest battery, right? It's as a contractor are going to be on the hook. The expectation is here at least 5 years, could be up to 10 or 20 years to keep that system online and healthy. So what are you seeing as somebody who I guess is newer to battery installation, having done solar before?
So I'm
Are there
saying,
any brands that
yeah,
you've chosen that you can partner with high
yeah.
confidence?
So all the people that have EVs and all the solar nerds, like they're the people that are passionate about it. That they will ring you up and say, "I want a Tesla, I want a Sigenergy," and that's about all they'll demand, and they'll go around
Hmm.
doing that. And then the people that are like, "Oh, battery rebate, oh yeah, just give us the cheapest one." That's like the kind of market. There's that, and then there's the nerds, the people that love this stuff, and so what we're doing, we're just partnering with Sigenergy, Tesla, but it seems to me that the Sigenergy is more practical in every way. The only thing with the Sigenergy is you've got stock issues at the moment, it seems. And then for someone that wants maybe a SunGrow, because we've done SunGrow before, so I don't know if you're
Mm,
familiar with these brands because it varies so much. And then Growatt as well. We use Growatt.
grow
How
out,
do
yeah.
how is Growatt seen and looked at in the respect level in America?
So I see Growatt as popular in the off-grid and the do-it-yourself community.
Yeah,
It is a very competitively priced product and it's relatively easy to use, even if you're not a professional. So that's where I see most of the interest in Growatt is with in individual do-it-yourself homeowners. I don't know of any professional solar contractors that are installing Growatt.
right.
Um, yeah, what we see in the States, obviously Tesla is popular, Enphase is popular. There's a new company, relatively new company called Franklin, which is a Chinese
Franklin,
company, yeah, but they made their battery specifically for the U.S. market.
yeah,
They're doing
they're over
well.
here too. I've seen them here.
Okay,
Um,
they're in Australia now as well.
so when you say
And
grow what's hot big with DIYs, it can DIY people go and get a Tesla, for example, or they can't purchase it.
no, it's very difficult for an individual,
That's
an
why, yeah.
unlicensed individual, to
That's
purchase a
why,
Tesla
yeah.
because
Yeah.
yeah. Whereas anybody can go to Growatt, it's sold by a number of online retailers. You can purchase the inverters and whatever battery you want to pair with it. You can purchase all that equipment directly.
Yeah, see, that's why. See, that's one thing. We don't have a DIY community or anything like that in Australia. And probably for the best. But yeah, I do
That's
see
it.
people doing it.
Huh.
Yeah. Do you guys cringe at the DIY guys? Like,
Well, I mean, I can relate to them because I started there. I
yeah.
started tinkering with things before I got fully licensed and certified anyway, so I can understand the interest there. Um, but most solar that's being installed, of course, it's by professional contractors, licensed contractors, and electricians, and it's interacting with the local power company, so you can take advantage of trading energy back and forth as needed.
Yeah. And the
But
DIY guys can organize that themselves.
they can. They can because they can configure the system for self-consumption. I don't know if you see this a lot where you live, but a lot of the systems they install for self-consumption. So their systems are connected to the power grid, but they don't export anything to the power grid. So basically the homes are running off solar during the daytime. They're running off batteries as much as they can at nighttime, and then the solar will recharge the battery the next
See,
day.
we
They
need
pretty much just use the power company as a last resort option.
we need like proper like industry passwords to be able to do all that with the firmware of the inverters and like inspections. Like, yeah, that just cannot happen here. But yeah, it's different.
Yeah, well, Yeah, I mean, no, I think that it's not the largest segment of the solar community here in the States, but there is a really good
Amount where
sized
it's popping
DIY
off.
community and
Yeah,
several options there.
yeah, fair enough. So,
So
so with the Australian market and things like that, what do you see? Why do you see Sigenergy as being so popular? And what do you think of like backup power for these inverters and three phase, for example? Because that's where it's all going towards, like people wanting to know about the backup for their home. A lot of people don't understand that just because you got a battery, that doesn't even some necessarily meant backup. Yeah,
yeah, well, I mean, I think the Sigenergy product has a number of things going for it. One is it's a high power output. So a single inverter here in the States would put out 11.5 kilowatts continuous power. So it's enough to basically power a whole home under most circumstances, especially
yeah,
if you're using load control. I think as an installer, it's advantageous because it's broken up into smaller building blocks to where you don't have to use any special lift equipment. A two-person crew can complete the installation without having to use a forklift or a special lift dolly or something like that. So I think logistically for contractors, it's a more installation-friendly product. And then of course it's stackable and scalable. So I believe you can get in the States, the way it's listed right now, you can stack up to 38 kilowatt hours in a single stack. I'm
yeah.
not sure if you have that restriction in Australia. You might be able to go slightly larger, over 40 kilowatt hours in a single stack.
I believe it's around 40.
But
Yeah,
okay. But I mean, I think that basically covers it for the majority of homes. You
yeah,
know, if you're talking about a typical US home, including central air conditioning, all of that can run on a single Sigenergy stack, and the installation can be done relatively affordably and profitably for the installer as well. I think the big question is going to be lifetime, long-term after install support.
that's the
But
big question
the feedback
I'm
that we're getting,
asking. Yeah,
yeah, I mean the feedback we're getting so far is very positive. But only time will tell, you know. And I would also put Franklin in that category too. The feedback we're getting from installers is that after install support is solid. I'm curious what your experience has been with Tesla, if you installed Tesla at all.
no, never had it, and there's a lot of Australians here that won't go near it just because of the whole Elon thing now, and
Hmm.
yeah, there's Tesla. Yeah, then with the three phase backup, I believe you need to have three of them.
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah, so that's so people just rather would have a three phase inverter at the moment for things like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, they seem to be popular, but this Sigenergy just man, people that's the flavor of the month of this on in Australia at the moment.
Yeah, well, I actually had a chance to meet their managing director for Australia when I was in Munich, Germany a few weeks ago, and
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of the international team from Sigenergy was there. Um, Including William Hall, I believe is his name, is the Sigenergy head for Australia. And yeah, he said they were crushing it. But I think it's well deserved. They've got a very well designed product. It's at a good competitive price point. They have the backing of a very strong international manufacturing group, and I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. Of course, they're now aggressively coming into the U.S. market currently. Although in the U.S., the issue we have is there's a lot of policy uncertainty regarding tariffs and tax credits, and I think that's the only thing causing, some manufacturers to maybe take a little bit of caution as far as how soon they want to come in, once we know what the rules of the playing field are going to be.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, is there anything else you could add to the Australian dynamic here that you think you could that would be helpful to the buyer at the moment? Like, yeah, do you tell them to use like any discernment when looking at a solar quote or anything? Because this is new to
Well, I think,
many people that it's even trying to offer it to customers, so that customers are
I
right
would
to be
say
wary.
to customers out there is, do your research on the batteries, on the products, but also make sure that you choose the right contractor because What you're getting into is going to be a long-term relationship with a contracting business. You want to make sure that that business is going to be there in the future to make sure that if you have any customer service or technical issues that come up, that they will address it for you. So equipment is important. Choosing the right contractor is just as important. And that would be my overall advice. My overall advice to homeowners: don't shop for this on cheapest price. If anybody's watching out there, this is not one of those things you want to buy on cheapest price.
Okay.
Contractor that you have the
Make
most
sure your
confidence in.
home insurance is up to date.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen bad things like that, like fires and stuff like that from?
In Florida and Texas in particular, we had a lot of bad incidents that happened. There were some companies that came in, they did a lot of high volume but very poor quality work. There were
Mm,
several cases of roof leaks and a handful of cases of electrical fires as well. So we actually have seen some insurance carriers dropping coverage for homes that had solar installed,
yeah,
particularly in
wow.
Florida. It was a big issue.
What about for hail damage?
Well, hail damage is interesting because and you see this a lot, particularly in Texas. But the most of the insurers there are already aware of the hail risk. And so there actually are companies that specialize in doing insurance sponsored hail repair work,
Hmm.
and including solar companies that will
Yeah.
come in behind a hailstorm and they'll specialize in repairing or replacing a solar system that's been damaged by hail. But if it's not an extreme event, the solar panels themselves are pretty resilient. In fact, it's coincidental. In about 45 minutes, we have a video publishing on our channel, which is running a hail strike test on solar panels, showing how much they can take and when they fail. So that'll be coming out here probably by the time your audience sees this interview.
Yeah, right. Because we've had a few big hailstorms, but where the hail was so big, it actually went through the tiles on the roof. Like, yeah, like
Wow.
no, any solar panel's gonna be able to withstand that stuff. So, my question is like, I guess, yeah, we were seeing it before as well, 5 years ago, before the drones and the imaging, the thermal imaging cameras, that they were just going, yep, yep, here, sign off, sign off, sign off, get a new system, here's the money, go. But now they're being a bit more, as you said, like they're just not even, they're very difficult, becoming a bit more difficult to deal with. Uh, yeah, so that must be something that I would encourage all customers to do is check with your home insurance policy.
Yeah, yeah. And also back to my point about not shopping for the cheapest option, solar panels the same as batteries. You want to have a solar panel that has at least 3 millimeters of thickness of the front glass,
Yeah.
to have that, strength to withstand hail strikes.
So your testing in that video did show that some were a lot more durable than others.
Well, the video we put together, we're just testing one particular model of solar
Oh yeah.
panel. So we just basically we just kept increasing the size and the speed of the hail until it
Oh yeah.
until the panel ultimately failed.
Yeah, right.
But there is a bare minimum test. In the States, every solar panel has to be able to withstand at least a 25 millimeter, which is about a 1 inch diameter hail impact at terminal
Projected
velocity.
yeah.
But we dialed it up quite a bit from there. You take a look at the video. It'll be out here within about an hour or so, and
Yeah,
we had
that'd
we
be
had a lot of
interesting.
fun doing that one.
Yeah, no worries, man. Well, Joe, thanks for coming on and letting us know about, yeah, what your expertise is, your professional opinion on the solar battery scheme. What do you think of that scheme that's just rolled out? It's a bit crazy, yeah. And it all just
I
happened
mean,
so
it
quick.
sounds like an incredibly generous offer. I'm curious how the politicians sold it or justified it, but I'll tell you this is one of the few times where, at least in my experience, one of the few things where the government will give you money to help make you more individually more resilient and less dependent on government or less dependent on public infrastructure.
If you're a
And for
homeowner.
me, philosophically, that's a great deal. I'll take a half off battery if you're buying.
Yeah.
But the other downside of that, though, of course, is, and that's what we're dealing with in the States right now, is when you have businesses that are built too dependent on the government subsidies and the government tax rebates, and then if those programs get taken away, you can see a lot of business failures. And that's one of the things that's going on in the U.S. right now. The current bill that's working through the U.S. Congress threatens to remove the 30% residential tax credit for solar. So
Oh, yeah.
essentially, it's going to make solar 30% more
More
expensive for
expensive.
individual homeowners,
Yeah,
and
right.
um, and that obviously the industry is not thrilled about that.
Because yeah, we were just limping along, and the bad stuff was kind of, getting tossed aside, the bad companies, and we was getting actually good. We're actually in a period of transition where only the good guys were left. And then because it had been so slow, then they threw this and it just
Mhm.
they've come out of nowhere. Yeah. So you do have
Yeah,
to be
yeah. Well,
careful.
it's resilient. I think that the industry is resilient for those of us, if you want to call us the good guys or the guys that are in this for the long term. We'll figure out a way to adjust and we'll move on as an industry.
Yeah, no worries, man. Well, Joe, thanks for coming on. But yeah, if you ever wanted to do some videos directed at Australia buyers and this thing, you definitely get some views up there. I'm telling you right now, because
Yeah,
everyone
well, let me know if there's
everyone's
any
researching.
Australian topics. We do have a good chunk of the audience that does watch from Australia, and we'd be happy to cover some of those topics.
Yeah, man. No worries, Joe. Well,
Great.
thanks for coming on, buddy, and enjoy
All
your day
right.
over there.
Yep, you got it, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.